In February, I saw 4 films for the first time, so instead of reviewing them all individually, I'm just going to do it all at once and rank them at the same time, so enjoy. Number 4 for my majestic list is Aquaman, so a spoiler warning for Aquaman. Okay, this film is boring as all things holy, like Jesus Christ. I actually wanted to turn it off and do something else. The entire main plot of overthrowing the King of Atlantis was so goddamn crap because I had no investment in what was going on. I feel as though this plot would have been so much better as a sequel rather than the first film, because I think the first film should really just focus on what kind of character Aquaman himself is and like what it's going to be like in the future, whereas this whole subplot would have been far better once you know who he is, so you didn't need to spend the movie both developing who he is, which by the way did poorly, and doing this plot, so it just doesn't work for me. Speaking of which, Aquaman himself wasn't really well written in my opinion. He goes from this stereotypical brooding, arrogant hero to a painfully comical character. When I say comical, I mean that very loosely. To this noble, kind hero of Atlantis, like, come on. This whole film is just a narrative drag, to be honest. However, while it does suck narratively, cinematically, it is phenomenal. The camera angles and the movements during well choreographed action scenes are genuinely satisfying to look at, and the CGI is really well done in most places, bar a few off-looking green screen effects. There's also this subplot that happens in the middle of the film where they go search for the Golden Trident, and honestly, I really wish they just made this the whole film, as this part by itself feels genuinely good, but then when you've got the main storyline around it, it feels so out of place and in a sense feels like it's made, written and directed by a completely different person. So in total, Aquaman gets a 4 out of 10. My number 4 pick is Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald, and as always, spoilers ahead. Cool. My main takeaway from this film is that it's what I like to call a link movie. The sort of movie that's, sandwiched between 2 other films just to fill in the gaps and get the characters from point A to point B, or in this case, movie 1 to movie 3. Don't get me wrong, link movies can be good, but unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, The Crimes of Grindelwald just isn't. The characters are all great in my opinion, especially Dumbledore and Grindelwald, who I genuinely think Grindelwald is better than Voldemort ever was. He just has way more character to him, and you can actually sort of relate to him, so props to, who the hell wrote? J.K. Rowling wrote this, didn't she? Oh yeah. So props to J.K. Rowling for writing a good villain, I guess. Yeah, anyway, the CGI and cinematography are pretty good too, but like Aquaman, the problem comes in the narrative side of things. First of all, let's just say, the first half of this film I think is great, but the problem really comes in when you get into the third act. It's sort of the opposite of what they did in Rogue One. The first 2 acts, they're good, alright, they're fine, I like them, but then the third act is horrible. Everything just turns around for the worse when you get to this third act. You have plot twists that make absolutely no sense and are going for shock over quality, a rushed finale which tries to tie together all of the plot threads but doesn't work, and Queenie joining the dark side? What? You're telling me that the one character in love with a muggle joins the side where they want a war with them? Of all characters to choose from in this entire Wizarding World universe, you choose Queenie. It just sucks, in my opinion. It really doesn't feel natural, and it feels like J.K. Doofus over here wanted to make a conflict, and it doesn't work, making the ending just so underwhelming. And then there's this whole Aurealis Dumbledore thing, and it feels entirely messy and rushed, and sorry, it's just has so much potential and didn't live up to it. 5 out of 10. Coming in at number 2, we have Bumblebee, so spoiler warning. Also, this is my first ever Transformers movie I've seen, so keep that in mind, that this is a review of somebody that's never seen a Transformers movie. Alright, this film is honestly really good. It's a really wholesome story of a character named Charlie, played by Haley Stenfield, and Bumblebee, growing a connection while Bee has his memories erased. I think all of the characters, with an exception of Charlie's rushed love interest, are brilliant and well acted and make for a really fantastic story. I really connected with Charlie, and she felt like such a great, likeable protagonist that does a really good job at just investing you in the entire story, so massive props to Haley Stenfield for managing to do this so well. Moving on to cinematically, this film has some of the best CGI I've seen this entire year. And by this year I mean last year, because this film came out last year. About halfway through this movie was the point I realised that Bumblebee's actually CGI, because the CGI feels so natural that I genuinely didn't notice that the giant robotic car was not CGI. In my mind, it felt so natural and beautifully well done. So there's a massive win for that. As for the flaws in this movie, the writing could be better in some moments. Like at the end, there's a part where the love interest tries holding her hand, and she says, "No, we're not there yet." And just moments like that, they don't work and seem a little cringy. Also, love interest character was just boring. I don't remember his name. I think it begins with an M or something. It's just really forgettable. I kind of wish they'd spent a bit more time developing his character a little bit more, instead of, forcing him in there but not doing anything good with him. Other than that, I can't really think of many other flaws. This film is such a wholesome and well done story, and as my first entry to the Transformers universe, it did a fantastic job, so 7 out of 10. But it comes down to my number one pick for films I saw in February, and that's going to have to be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Spoilers, I'm saying it now, if you've not seen it, go watch it, it's fantastic. I really love this so much. It's just come out on DVD and Blu-ray, I think, so go pick up a copy and watch it, it's brilliant. Onto the actual review. This is such a natural, fantastic film, and easily by miles, literally, and is easily by miles the best Spider-Man film to date. First of all, it looks bloody stunning visually. They really innovated hugely with the animation, and I've never seen anything quite like it. They combined art styles depending on the character, so Spider-Noir was black and white with these like polka dot shading, Peter Porker was more like a morning cartoon, Penny was anime, and then Miles, Gwen and Peter were all such a perfect mix of CGI and hand-drawn animation that doesn't feel weird in the slightest and barely noticeable. The characters are also fantastic narratively as well. Peter Parker's an interesting play on his character and the mentor sort of character. Spider-Noir is funny and dark, and Gwen is probably my new favourite Spider-Person because her character was so interesting from the moment we met her. And Miles Morales, oh my god, Miles! This character supposedly sucks in the comics. I've not read it personally, but apparently it sucks tremendously. And in the comics, most people have described him as literally just Black Spider-Man. And in this film, they managed to make him so interesting by giving him unique character traits. And all of this is very well shown by things like his graffiti-esque art style, his mumble rap music he likes listening to, and just different culture in general. Hollywood, right, take note. This is how you make a diverse character that invests you throughout and doesn't feel like just a forced inclusion message like some films out there. I don't think there's any need for me to have a tangent about this. You hear it all the time on the internet, just literally search it up. But it doesn't feel forced in the slightest. Anyway, I'm going to move on. The soundtrack of this film does a really fantastic job at adding to the presentation and character of Miles, and makes him feel like a unique original character that just happens to have Spider-Man powers other than the Black Spider-Man. I could literally gush about the positives of this movie all day, but I'm gonna move on. Now, as much as I do love this movie, I have one major flaw with this film that really took me out the movie for a little while. I really feel as though Miles learns to become Spider-Man just way too fast. He goes from little to no knowledge or experience of how to be Spider-Man to just kicking ass with the others in like a night. I mean, sure, the sequence where he first uses his powers was really cool, but the fact he becomes Spider-Man that fast just really doesn't work and took me out of the finale for a while. The only other real issue I have with the film is that Fisk's motivations are really weak, and in my opinion, don't really warrant his actions. However, the other villains like Doc Ock and Prowler make up for this, villain-wise. And that's literally all the flaws I could think of, but not nearly as much praise as I could think of. As for the future of Sony, Marvel Universe, whatever it's called, my only real wish is that they really don't get cocky and actually focus on the quality like they did in this film. Also, I'd personally love to see a Spider-Gwen film. I don't know, her character just really interested me, and I can't put my finger on why. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse gets a solid 9 out of 10 for being such a fantastic movie to enjoy and watch. I would have got a 10 if it wasn't for the issue with Spider-Man's pacing I mentioned earlier. And that concludes this video. Thanks for watching. I wanted to create these monthly reviews instead of every time I see the film, because it just took too long to, write the script, record it, edit it, upload it. And I have a serious procrastination issue, so then I don't review the films, and then because I've not reviewed the film yet, I'll not watch a film because in my head I still had to review it. So anyway, I just hope that this formula's way better. I'll still do individual reviews for films I think really deserve it, like Endgame when I go to see it in April. But for others, I'll probably just do them in this big monthly review bundle. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you later.